What if I told you that Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, started every single day by talking to himself? Not because he was crazy, but because he understood something that modern psychology is just now proving. The words you speak to yourself in the morning literally rewire your brain and determine the quality of your entire day. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you the exact 5 phrases that Stoic philosophers used daily. Phrases so powerful that they transformed ordinary people into unshakable forces of nature. And by the end of this video, you'll have a morning routine that will make you mentally bulletproof. But before we dive in, if you're serious about building mental strength and living with purpose, hit that subscribe button right now. Why? Because every single day, I break down ancient wisdom that actually works in the modern world. And trust me, after today's video, you're going to want to be part of this community that's choosing strength over weakness, clarity over confusion. Here's what most people don't understand about Stoicism. It's not about suppressing emotions or becoming a robot. It's about becoming the director of your own mind instead of being a victim of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But here's the thing, he didn't just write this once and forget about it. He practiced it daily through specific phrases that he would repeat to himself. And today, neuroscience backs this up completely. Dr. Ethan Kross from the University of Michigan has proven that self-talk literally changes your brain structure. The words you speak to yourself create neural pathways that either make you stronger or weaker. Now, I'm going to give you something incredibly valuable today, not just the 5 phrases, but the exact way to use them so they actually work. Plus, I've got a bonus technique at the end that Marcus Aurelius used when facing his darkest moments. So stick with me, because this is going to change how you start every single day. The first thing you need to tell yourself every morning is, "I control my responses." Listen, life is going to throw curveballs at you today. Your boss might be unreasonable. Traffic might be terrible. Someone might disappoint you. But here's what separates Stoics from everyone else. They know that between what happens to you and how you respond, there's a space. And in that space lies your power. Epictetus, who went from slave to one of the greatest philosophers in history, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But here's the practical part. When you say, "I control my responses" in the morning, you're not just saying words. You're programming your brain to look for that space between stimulus and response throughout the day. Try this right now. Think about something that stressed you out yesterday. Now imagine yourself in that situation, saying, "I control my response," and taking a deep breath before reacting. Feel the difference? That's the power of preparation. The Navy SEALs have a saying, "Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training." When you train your mind every morning with this phrase, you're building mental muscle that will serve you when it matters most. The second phrase is ancient but incredibly powerful. "This too shall pass." Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, betrayals, and the death of multiple children. Yet he wrote, "Remember that very little disturbs the wise man, for he is not distracted by the things that happen, but by his judgments about them." When you remind yourself every morning that this too shall pass, you're doing something profound. You're putting today's problems in perspective before they even happen. Here's what's brilliant about this. Modern psychology calls this temporal distancing, and research shows it reduces stress hormones by up to 50%. When you know that whatever happens today is temporary, you approach challenges with curiosity instead of panic. But there's a deeper layer here. This phrase works both ways. Good times pass and bad times pass. This keeps you humble in success and hopeful in difficulty. It's the ultimate emotional stabilizer. I want you to think about the worst day you had last year. Where is that problem now? Exactly. It passed. And whatever you're facing today will pass too. This isn't toxic positivity. This is reality-based wisdom. Now we're about to get to the phrase that Marcus Aurelius called the most important words a person can speak to themselves. This one literally saved his sanity during the darkest period of his reign. So don't go anywhere, because this next one is pure gold. The third phrase might surprise you. I am enough as I am. Wait, isn't this the opposite of self-improvement? Absolutely not. Here's what the Stoics understood that modern self-help gets wrong. You can't build a strong life on a foundation of self-hatred. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." But you can't begin from a place of believing you're fundamentally broken. When you tell yourself, I am enough as I am, you're not saying you're perfect or that you shouldn't grow. You're saying that your worth isn't conditional on your achievements, other people's approval, or your circumstances. This is revolutionary because most people spend their entire lives trying to earn their own self-respect. They think, I'll be worthy when I lose weight, make more money, find the right relationship, get the promotion. But the Stoics knew something different. Your worth is inherent. You are enough because you exist, because you have the capacity to choose virtue, because you can contribute to the world. Here's the practical magic. When you start from I am enough, you make decisions from abundance, not scarcity. You take risks because your identity isn't on the line. You help others because you're not desperately trying to fill your own cup. Research from Stanford shows that people who practice self-compassion are actually more motivated to improve, not less. Because when you're not fighting yourself, you can focus on fighting your real challenges. The fourth phrase is where Stoicism gets practical. I choose virtue over comfort. This is the phrase that separates the philosophers from the practitioners. Anyone can read about Stoicism, but living it requires this daily commitment to doing what's right instead of what's easy. Marcus Aurelius had every luxury imaginable, yet he chose to sleep on the ground with his soldiers. Why? Because he understood that comfort is the enemy of character. But let's be clear about what virtue means in Stoicism. It's not about being perfect or following arbitrary rules. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These aren't abstract concepts, they're daily choices. Wisdom means seeking truth over being right. Justice means treating people fairly even when they don't deserve it. Courage means doing what's right even when it's scary. Temperance means moderation and self-control. When you say, I choose virtue over comfort every morning, you're preparing yourself for the moments when these choices matter. When someone cuts you off in traffic, do you choose the virtue of temperance or the comfort of anger? When you see someone being treated unfairly, do you choose the virtue of justice or the comfort of staying silent? Here's what's powerful. Every time you choose virtue over comfort, you build what the Stoics called moral muscle. And just like physical muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. The research backs this up too. Studies show that people who regularly practice small acts of self-discipline, choosing virtue over comfort, have better relationships, more success, and greater life satisfaction. All right, we're at the final phrase, and this one is the secret weapon. This is what Marcus Aurelius used when facing impossible decisions, when the weight of the empire was crushing him. And I'm also going to give you that bonus technique I promised, the one thing that makes all of these phrases 10 times more powerful. So stay with me. The fifth and final phrase is the foundation of all Stoic practice. Today, I will focus on what I can control. This sounds simple, but it's the most difficult thing you'll ever do. Why? Because human beings are wired to worry about everything except what they can actually control. You can't control the weather, other people's actions, the economy, your past, or even your future. But you can control your thoughts, your responses, your effort, and your choices. That's it. That's the list. Epictetus taught this through what's called the dichotomy of control. He said there are things that are up to you and things that are not up to you. Happiness comes from focusing exclusively on what's up to you. But here's where most people mess this up. They think this means becoming passive or not caring about outcomes. Wrong. The Stoics cared deeply about outcomes. They just didn't attach their peace of mind to them. When you say today, I will focus on what I can control, you're making a commitment to put your energy where it can actually make a difference. You're choosing effectiveness over anxiety. Think about how much mental energy you waste every day worrying about things you can't control. What if you redirected all of that energy toward the things you can control? You'd become unstoppable. This is why Marcus Aurelius could lead an empire while maintaining his sanity. This is why Epictetus could find freedom even as a slave. They focused their power where they actually had power. Now here's the bonus technique I promised, the method that makes all of these phrases incredibly powerful. Marcus Aurelius didn't just say these things once and move on. He wrote them down. Every morning, he would write in what we now call his meditations, but he never intended for anyone else to read them. They were his private conversations with himself. Here's what you need to do. Get a journal and every morning, write these 5 phrases by hand. Not on your phone, not on your computer, by hand. Why? Because writing by hand activates different parts of your brain and creates stronger neural pathways. But don't just copy them word for word. Personalize them. Instead of "I control my responses," write "I," your name, control my responses to whatever happens today. Make it personal. Make it real. Then, after you write each phrase, write one sentence about how you're going to apply it that day. For example, "I choose virtue over comfort. Today, I will have that difficult conversation with my colleague instead of avoiding it." This takes maybe 10 minutes, but it's the most important 10 minutes of your day. You're literally programming your mind for success, resilience, and peace. Marcus Aurelius did this for decades, and it made him one of the greatest leaders in history. Not because he was naturally perfect, but because he trained his mind every single day. Listen, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds too simple to work. But that's exactly why it does work. The most powerful truths are often the simplest ones. You don't need expensive courses, complicated systems, or perfect conditions. You just need these 5 phrases and the commitment to use them every single day. Remember, Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world, but he still needed daily reminders to stay on track. If the Emperor of Rome needed this practice, what makes you think you don't? The difference between people who transform their lives and people who stay stuck isn't talent, luck, or circumstances. It's daily practice. It's showing up every morning and choosing to train your mind instead of letting it run wild. These 5 phrases, "I control my responses," "This too shall pass," "I am enough as I am," "I choose virtue over comfort," and "Today, I will focus on what I can control." They're not just words. They're tools. They're weapons against anxiety, depression, anger, and fear. But tools only work if you use them. So tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you drink your coffee, before you do anything else, speak these words to yourself. Write them down. Make them real. Your future self will thank you. If this video helped you see the power of daily self-talk, do me a favor and smash that like button. Not just because it helps the channel, but because it's your way of saying, "I'm committed to building mental strength." It's your first act of choosing virtue over comfort today. And here's what I want you to do right now. Comment below with the phrase, "I am in control," so I know you're serious about this practice. I read every single comment, and I want to see this community commit to taking control of their minds. If you know someone who's struggling with anxiety, stress, or just feeling overwhelmed by life, share this video with them. You might be giving them exactly what they need to turn their life around. Sometimes the smallest act of sharing can have the biggest impact. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Why? Because every single day, I'm breaking down ancient wisdom that actually works in the modern world. This isn't just philosophy. This is practical psychology for building an unshakable life. Finally, I want you to come back to this video in 30 days and tell me how these phrases change your life. Because they will change your life if you use them. The Stoics have been proving this for over 2,000 years. And now it's your turn. Remember, you have power over your mind. Use it.